Hey everybody, welcome to Thermofax Thursdays. And today what I'm going to talk about is different viscosities of paint. The paint that you use with the Thermofax screen can change depending on the material and the look you want. So we always say, or generally I always say, use a thicker paint. Whether it's a textile paint or a regular acrylic paint, you want to use a thicker paint so it doesn't spread out. But sometimes it's very cool to have it spread out. So I'm going to do three different viscosities. I'm going to do Dynaflow, which is a textile paint that's super liquidy. It's more liquidy than an ink. And then I'm going to use Profab Opaque Blue textile paint, which is a medium viscosity. And then I'm going to use some Liquitex acrylic paint, and I'll do the demo both on paper and fabric so you can see how it changes with both. It's really interesting. So real quick, this is the Dynaflow on fabric. Maybe not so cool unless you were looking for a real messy, sloppy background, but look at it on paper. That is really cool. You get these great kind of watercolory marks. I love it. This is the textile paint on fabric, and this is the textile paint on paper. So you can see that it's pretty crisp, but not totally crisp. It's got a little bit of watery marks to it. And then this is the heavier Liquitex paint, the heavy body acrylic. You can see it's a super crisp image. However, this paint is going to change the hand of your fabric. It may not matter depending on what you're doing. You know, if it's going to be a wall piece and you're not heavily stitching on it, it won't matter. And it's super crisp on paper. You get a really beautiful crisp line. Those fine lines are hard to do sometimes. So let me show you real quickly. I've got a Circles Thermofax screen and just a piece of white cotton. I am working on a padded print board, and there's information on the website for that. So I'm using a sponge brush and dipping it in the Dynaflow, and then I'm going to kind of dab off some of the excess. And as usual, hold your Thermofax screen at the top, and I'm going to use a pretty light hand and just bring that ink down, or that Dynaflow paint down. And it doesn't go through the Thermofax screen all that well on fabric. I'm just telling you now. So you can see I've got smears and splotches. But on paper, it will be a little blotchy because some's on the back already, but I'm gonna do the same thing, hold it at the top, and look at how cool and watercolory that looks. That is just, I love how that's just an awesome print, if you ask me. I love it. So that is Dynaflow. You wouldn't normally use it with a Thermofax screen, but sometimes having a really thin watercolor look, it works perfect. All right, so the next one I'm going to show you is using a textile paint. And you can see the viscosity is fairly thick, but it's still a little bit drippy. Kind of comes off, I don't know, like super heavy cream, half whipped cream. And I usually like a palette knife to pull it out, or it seems like the spoons, you waste a lot in the spoon, you have to get it out. The palette knife, you can just tap it across the top a little bit easier and then just get it off your knife to put back in. Don't have a place to put this, I'll put it in there. Okay, so one of the things that I found is if you have a friend who works at any department store or small shop, that when they have gift cards returned, they throw them away. So it's a super great supply of having trash, that, without using your own expired credit cards, to use as squeegees. So now I'm going to put my hand across the top and pull. Now with this paint, you want to use a medium pressure, not too much. And again, you don't want to go back and forth. You just want to go one direction. If you can get enough pressure all in to do it once, that's perfect. You're much more likely to get a clean print. So there we have a beautiful clean print on that one. And it's nice and crisp. And then I'll do one on paper as well, so you can see that. A lot of people get confused. They think textile paint is only for textiles. No, textile paint is acrylic paint, just like the Liquitex paint. It just has a textile medium in it. It will work just fine on paper. On the paper, I tend not to use it. I tend to use a little bit less pressure because it's not as porous as the fabric. Put that back in. And there we go. So we have a couple really good prints with the Textile Paint. But finally, we're going to try the heavier body paints. And the nice thing about the paints in a tube is you can just squeeze them out right across the top. The not nice thing is you can't put the paint back in the tube when you're done. So everything has a pro and a con, right? So you can see it's much thicker, it just holds that nice line right there. Again, I'm going to pull down. I'm going to use a little tiny bit more pressure in order to make sure that the paint goes all the way through. I can't get it in that one spot. Come on. Okay. And look, well, except for that one spot where we went over 3 times, it's really nice and crisp and clean. And a little bit, let me see if I can pull that other one over here. The lines are just a little tiny bit more defined with this one than with the one with the textile paint, but they're both pretty good. So either would work. And then on a piece of paper, and the paper I'm using is just a Bristol vellum. It's got a nice little finish to it and a heavy body. There you go. I didn't quite have enough pressure at this first end when I started, so you can see it's a little bit lighter, but we get really nice crisp lines there. And what did I do with my... And here it is with the other paint, with the textile paint. It's a little more smeary, but they're really pretty close. So you kind of use those interchangeably, but you can see with the thicker paint, it's just a little bit more, you have to press a little bit harder, but you get a much crisper line. So those are our 3 paint viscosities. Play around with different paints that you have, or try taking a textile medium to an acrylic paint to thin it down a little bit to play with how thick or thin you want it.